So in the new year, China is back to its old tricks, spreading propaganda against India. This time, it's a video put out by a reporter of the Chinese state media that shows Chinese military personnel unfurling their national flag. Now, Beijing media claims that the flag was unfurled at Galwan, the flashpoint in bloody clashes between India and China in June 2020. We lost 20 of our braves. By some accounts, Chinese lost many more. Indian Army sources say that this unfurling of the Chinese Tiananmen Square flag was nowhere close to the friction point. But the video has triggered a big political war of words, with the Congress demanding answers from Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Did anyone really expect a different New Year gift from a country that has presented the world with nothing but human misery since 2020? As 2021 turned to 2022, just as the latest variant of China's global pandemic gift was assuming scary proportions, the Chinese government was busy pumping money into yet another propaganda video to taunt India. A video designated to mock just hours after troops from both sides exchanged sweets at one of the other friction points, reminding India and the world that no matter what else happens, Chinese propaganda cannot and will not ever stop. Amplified and trended by official Chinese cyber armies and state organs, the video showing Chinese soldiers unfurl a large symbolic Chinese flag somewhere in the Galwan Valley to the tune of Chinese military chants is designated to poke and provoke. 18 months after 20 Indian soldiers and by some accounts a greater number of Chinese soldiers were killed in a violent close-quarter combat clash. The video is only the latest in a stream of images China has selectively leaked since the June 2020 Galwan incident. Clips selectively leaked to show Indian troops captive, injuries to Indian soldiers, and a dominant Chinese army. Selective clips designed to show the opposite of what really happened. For instance, while the Chinese army appears to be brandishing the flag in an effort to suggest it is in control of the Galwan friction point, top Indian Army sources have confirmed to India today that this video is nowhere near where the violence happened and is in fact deep within the Chinese side. Low on fact, but high on mind games and poking innuendo. That's the Chinese brand of provocation. One top-level Indian assessment suggests that Chinese predilection with propagating falsehood about Galwan is specifically because of the damage suffered by the People's Liberation Army on that cold June night.
If a clear-cut examination of this video is done, it is all fake, and this has been made in their area where they are still in possession, being their side of the LAC, and they have depicted the facts and figures in a manner so that their soldiers and their population believes in this kind of video and their morale is raised.
But India's political atmosphere has meant that the slightest propaganda from Beijing is immediately pounced upon by Indian opposition parties.
Not an inch of our soil is occupied by the Chinese. This is what he's been telling us. So on what soil is this flag being hoisted?
Modi government is a weak-kneed government. I'm sorry to say, but we have a weak Prime Minister who refuses to utter the word China. Modi government has compromised on national security and territorial integrity of India. This is an unpardonable sin that no government has committed.
The provocation comes days after the Chinese renamed 15 places in Arunachal Pradesh. The government had then put out a sharp reaction, reiterating that the state of Arunachal Pradesh is an integral part of India. As another cold winter peaks in Ladakh, China's fresh propaganda effort confirms once again that a world battling a Chinese-supplied pandemic doesn't matter to Xi Jinping's government. It's power play and propaganda first.
Even though this point is way beyond the place where the confrontation took place, the Chinese are making it appear as if they are back at the same place. And not just this, China has also come out with a list of 15 places in Arunachal Pradesh that it has renamed on its map. With camera person Abhishek, this is Abhishek Bhalla in New Delhi for India Today.
So an analysis of the video posted by Chinese media matches with satellite images of the terrain. Now the terrain mapping seems to indicate that this so-called flag hoisting ceremony was held away from the Galwan clash point. It was within the Chinese controlled territory where Chinese troops have been camping for quite some time. I quickly want to cut across to our reporters who are getting us much more on the story. India Today's Ankit Kumar joins me for more on this. Ankit, you and the Austin desk, you've analyzed these images, these videos. What's the assessment?
Well, what we have here, Gaurav, is a fine example of the hybrid warfare that we face from China. What we have done is we have analyzed frame by frame the videos put out by the Chinese social media handles. And what we can conclusively tell is that what we have been hearing from the Indian Army sources is in fact correct. That can be proven by anybody who can use Google Earth app. And what we have done is we have mapped the terrain, the geographical qualities that we can identify with, and we have matched that with the properties seen in Google Earth and satellite imagery that is freely available. What it confirms is that the video that has been put out by China, the unfurling of the Chinese flag, that was indeed that happened between 1.2 to 1.5 kilometers, depending on how you measure the distance. It is no way closer to Petrol Point 14 in Galwan Valley. In any warfare, Gaurav, what happens on ground is important. There's no denying the fact that we today face the single largest, the single greatest threat from China.
Yes.
Having said that, there is also an example of an information warfare that adds an additional element to any hybrid warfare.
Fair enough.
This is a fine example of how information is being mixed with what has been actually happening on ground to make it appear that something else might have happened at Galwan Valley, which is not only sensitive to the Indian population, but also appeals very highly to the Chinese population as well.
Are the Chinese playing mind games? They know India is a democracy and they're using democracy against the nature of warfare that is being fought here. For the moment, Ankit, many thanks. And with the Chinese, it's very clear. Nothing happens without a reason. So this unfurling of the Tiananmen Square red flag is aimed at internal domestic consumption in China or information warfare against India. Then the bridge on Pengong So, the exchange of sweets at friction points, the mind games that are being played. Will tensions spike in 2022? Joining me on India First, two of the finest voices on matters military and diplomacy. Lieutenant General Rakesh Sharma has commanded the Ladakh Corps. He's traveled across this entire belt, and of course Ambassador Vishnu Prakash, he has served extensively both in Pakistan and in China, knows the minds of both these countries. General Sharma, Chinese flag at Galwan, mind games in your appreciation for China's domestic consumption or for India?
Thank you for calling me, Gaurav, and Happy New Year to you and to all your listeners. Let me put it this way, that in the entire area, there were buffers being created from Rakhi Nala down to Pengong So. So and this is as per the agreements being carried out from this 8th round of talks onwards to the 12th, 13th round. If the Chinese had attempted to come closer to Galwan clash point, it would have been infringement of that agreement, which has been carried out right up to February this year. So I wouldn't even hazard to go across to the ascent and see it. I am, and we are all watching the areas which is buffers being created very intently. It would obviously be on the Chinese side of that buffer being created, which rightly, as you pointed out, or your correspondents were pointing out, were about a kilometer and a half away from the PP14. And that is actually logical also. We ourselves also have planted flags in Pegongso and other places, and those high mast flags, 1,000 feet. So those the flag it's a mind game, all right. It's acceptably it's a mind game. I am more anxious, Gaurav, is about the sovereignty issue. Now, of the Chinese having been speaking sovereignty over a period of time,
Yes,
and beyond territorial integrity, then this flag at this area depicts that this is their sovereign territory and not a disputed area, which
Fair
it
enough.
actually is a disputed area because Excitation belongs to us. And this area is exciting. exciting. So if we start drawing further conclusions on where the flag has been planted, and this huge flag, it is in our larger boundary, as we call the boundary up to Kundun Range. And that is a sovereignty issue which is contestable in another form.
fair enough. Ambassador Vishnu Prakash, a Chinese diplomat writing to Indian political leaders on Tibet, China giving Chinese names to villages in Arunachal Pradesh, and yet the exchange of sweets at multiple friction points. You see these as unrelated developments, or is China following a pattern, blowing hot, blowing cold?
Good evening, Gaurav. Lovely being with you, and Happy New Year.
Thank you,
There
sir.
is no blowing hot and cold. There is blowing hot and hotter as far as I am concerned. China is a master in playing mind games. Look at what they are doing. First of all, about China, they say that one should not go by what they say, one should go by what they do. That is the golden rule of engaging China. Now that look at what are they doing. They are fortifying, they are building infrastructure along the LAC. They are building multi-purpose villages. They are engaging in mind games. They are systematically engaging in disinformation because it is an integral part of warfare, but it's an integral part of the Chinese statecraft. Now, all this is happening for what? They are not there to do all this and go away. They are certainly, there is something that they have up their sleeve. What they are trying to do, Gaurav, is to try to keep us off balance, try to keep the suspense, try to keep our attention diverted. And the entire LAC is hot today. Now, let's not make any mistake about it. We could have eyeball to eyeball, we could have a cold peace, or we could have conflict. But all I know is, and I'm quite sure that they are not there to just walk away quietly. They have waged this misadventure, with the approval at the highest level,
Yes.
to create complications. And the whole idea is to embarrass India. The problem, Gaurav, is that we have enough dragon huggers in India.
Yes.
And while in other countries, Chinese machinations, propaganda will be just wished away, in India, they lap it up. And they then try to question the government, they try to create confusion, they try to sow discord. So that is the problem that we have in India. But the answer is complete vigilance. We have to stand on guard, stay on guard, and try to neutralize Chinese machinations, Gaurav.
That's a strong word. We have dragon huggers. We're a democracy. China appears to be using our democracy against us. Now, how do you counter something like that in your appreciation, Ambassador Vishnu Prakash? Because we're a democracy. The opposition will ask questions. Media will ask questions. Questions will be asked. Should the government respond to these questions? And, the way OSCENT handles are revealing the truth that China is caught lying. Why doesn't the government say so?
I am so happy that you posed that question. I've been mulling over that myself. Gaurav, there is a very thin line dividing, or a fine line dividing, ignoring something. You don't have to respond to everything, but not to respond or to completely ignore everything allows mischievous forces to leaves the field open to mischievous forces.
Yes.
Then there is speculation. Then there are innuendos. So I guess, and also recently, if you recall, when there was a Pentagon report that China had built a multi-purpose village inside Indian
Pradesh, yes.
Arunachal Pradesh, our spokesperson, and you know how the MEA spokesperson chooses words very carefully, said that in the past they have encroached upon Indian territory. I am not using the exact phraseology, but something to that effect, and that we do not recognize that. But our then CDS clarified that there has been no activity on the Indian side. Now, with all good intentions, but these kind of exchanges do create some doubt. And I think it is periodically, it's very important to set the record straight so that there is no room for confusion, there is no room for mischievous elements.
Oh, absolutely.
To discord.
Whether it's done directly, indirectly, in whatever way, the government must ensure that the Chinese propaganda machinery does not succeed. Also, what is China doing? China is also building a bridge across Pangong Tso. And before I bring in General Rakesh Sharma, take a look at this report filed by Editor Defense, Abhishek Bhalla. A desperate China is building a bridge on the Pangong Tso Lake. The dragon is gathering its resources to counter Indian forces in Ladakh. China's People Liberation Army is now building a bridge connecting north and south banks of Pangong Tso at the narrowest part of the lake. Sources in the Ministry of Defense have told India today that the bridge is being built using prefabricated structures. It is an effort by the Chinese to counter the August 2020-like operation by the Indian Army, where in quid pro quo operations, Indian Army occupied the dominating heights on the south bank of Pangong Tso, dominating the Chinese Moldo garrison. Sources also say the bridge is expected to cut down the travelling time between north and south banks of Pangong Tso and distance from 200 kilometers to less than 50 kilometers. The 135-kilometer long landlocked lake is divided between Ladakh and Tibet. 2/3 of the lake are in Chinese territory and 1/3 in India. The region has witnessed heightened tensions between India and China since May 2020.
This bridge is of immense strategic importance for the Chinese, as it will not only ensure quick deployment of the Chinese army from their depth areas to the contested areas at the Pangong Lake, but will also make sure that there is connectivity between the northern and the southern banks of the lake. The step has been taken after India had occupied key heights on the Kailash ranges in the southern bank, and that's when the Chinese felt threatened because the Indian army was dominating their Moldo garrison. Abhishek Bhalla in New Delhi for India Today.
General Sharma, your appreciation, are they building this bridge because of our QPQ operations? They do not want to be surprised next time. Quick build up, and how should India react? Object to it or build some of our own?
Okay, I'll answer the second question first. That's the question of objection. This bridge is obviously an excision in the area which belongs to us, and there is a need to protest. Protest is logical and must be done as soon as possible. That's because that is our territory, and it's the boundary discussions which have been on for last 3 decades refer to this area as ours. Now, how does it matter? Now, that sidechain area, Chinese have got a large number of laterals that are coming towards line of actual control from the NH, from the 219.
Yes, G219.
They have a large number of laterals connecting between all these roads. So there was actually no connection across the Pangong Tso Lake. As you're aware, Pangong Tso is also a very highly salty lake.
Yes.
So the troops had to move back towards Rudok along from Kurnar Port, Chirija, Kurnar Port, and onwards across to Rudok, and then come and take a turn 90 kilometers down south towards Moldova. So this bridge, it looks like a floating bridge. If it's a floating bridge, it will provide one more axial across between the South Pegongso and the North Pegongso, or the areas of Aksaichin, which are even right towards the salt plains and towards the south. So there is one more lateral being connected. It matters a lot. It will give a very important ability to switch forces.
Okay.
And we must object to this one.
We must object, you say. Ambassador Vishnu Prakash, are we being a little soft on all these Chinese actions? Is China achieving its 1959 claim line? And we also accept, this mithai exchange at friction points. China's building up in a big way. They've brought their rocket forces, their missile bases, airfields, heliports. Xi Jinping is facing some heat internally and internationally. In 2022, will China do what Mao Zedong did in 1962 to divert attention from domestic troubles, especially at a time, that time there was the Cuba crisis, just now there's the Russia-Ukraine crisis?
I think it's possible. With China, the first rule is to rule out nothing. They are capable of anything. But let's remember one thing. It is easy. Why did they stage the Galwan incident? Or why did they amass troops along the LAC? They thought that they will stage something and they will quickly withdraw. But their plans have come to a naught. Now, yes, Xi Jinping is under pressure. We don't know how much of pressure he is in internally. Externally, China's approval rating has never been lower. That is true. But for Xi Jinping to start something could be easy. But what happens if he fails? The price of failure in China is humongous. So, I don't think that they will want to start something with India which they cannot control when their purpose is served by continuing with the standoff, by continuing to surprise India, by continuing to keep India on tenterhooks.
Okay.
And they have a willing ally in Pakistan. We all know that the reason why China is doing that is that they know that India is a potential counterweight. So
Yes.
to keep India boxed in South Asia was their first effort. When that did not happen, idea is to divert India's attention to slow down our economic growth. So I think it will be a kind of a standoff unless there is something goes wrong. There could be a communication failure, there could be miscommunication.
And we'll track the story.
Again, the
Yes.
long and short is that one cannot rule out anything or rule in anything, because with China,
you never know, because China just cannot be trusted, and that should now become a part of India's DNA, that China just cannot be trusted. Will it? Will it not? We'll track that story very closely. To my guests, many thanks for joining me.